Topic which we are going to discuss from the perspective of mains examinations are wildfires in South America, especially in the northern part of South America is witnessing a lot of wildfires. We will going to discuss the causes and other measures related to wildfires in the South America, and eventually we're going to talk about how we are able to curb this wildfire in any region of this world. Secondly, we're going to talk about the trade deficit, which is increasing right now. So whether it is a concern for India or not, we're going to see. From the perspective of preliminary discussion, we are going to talk about Protocol. And secondly, we're going to talk about Sri Lanka presidential poll. Recently, it's completed peacefully. And finally, we're going to conclude our discussion with one of the important species of Australia, that is emu. So let us start our first topic, that is wildfires in South America. So we have taken this article from the Hindu newspaper, and we have taken this topic because wildfires, though have not been asked in the UPSC in the past, but there is a high probability that wildfires may be asked in the near future because a number of regions of India, especially the Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, are witnessing wildfires, right? So that's why we have taken this topic, and at the same time, we can use this information in various other disaster and disaster management. For instance, in case of drought, we can use this. Drought can be one of the reason for wildfires, right? That's why we can able to use this information in our topic, especially in disaster and disaster management. So let us start our topic, that is wildfires in South America. First of all, we'll try to understand the causes of wildfires, right? So primary causes is related to natural causes, that is lightning strikes. Almost 40% of the wildfires are due to this lightning strikes. Second condition is very important, that is drought and dry condition. What happens due to drought and dry condition, that the present in the water holes present in the any ecosystem get reduced. At the same time, the moisture of that ecosystem also get reduced, and because of this, any activity like small fire or frictional force can lead to wildfires, right? And that is due to this drought and dry conditions. Especially you can witness this type of forest fires in the western part of Australia. That is western part of Australia, that is a arid and semi-arid region, right? And due to dry conditions, there is a one important wildfire happened in 2020, that is known as Australian bushfire. And similarly, similar is the case with high temperature and wind as well. High temperature lead to evaporation of the water, so there is no as such moisture present in that ecosystem. And if there is no water present in that ecosystem, there is a high propensity that this any activity by human or by natural factors like frictional force or the collision of branches can lead to wildfires or sparking, which eventually lead to wildfires, right? So these are the few factors which are natural. But the most significant one is the anthropogenic causes. The in this the land use changes. The land use changes means that if you are changing the ecosystem, especially the rainforest ecosystem for enhancing your agriculture areas, in that what you will do, you will going to cut the natural forest ecosystem, and they have a number of varieties, and they can hold water moisture at a higher level as compared to the artificial ecosystem made during the agriculture process. uh, Agriculture is generally also dubbed as artificial ecosystem because it is a man-made, and they have less propensity to counter the disaster or any kind of problems associated with the wildfires or any other uh, impacts like insects and uh, other causes. Secondly, agricultural practices, especially the slash and burn practices, that is also known as zoom cultivation, and this type of practices are generally causing wildfires in Philippines area because the peatlands are being destroyed for the expansion of oil palm farming, right? and that lead to a lot of wildfires, especially in the Asia of the world. Thirdly, negligence and accidental ignition. It is because like cigarettes, whenever you go into the suppose if you're going to the hilly region or if you're going to the forest regions, generally people do campfiring, right? And they left the residue, and due to blowing of wind, this campfire led to the uh, wildfires in the adjoining regions or in the uh, that areas as well. And secondly, cigarette butt is one of the important reasons for wildfire, especially in India like Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Climate change, as we have seen that the temperature is increasing, and temperature increase lead to reduction in the moisture in the ecosystem, and that become a conducive environment for wildfires. And as per the IPCC report, around 1.2 degrees Celsius rise of global temperature is already happened in 2009 as compared to pre-industrial level. So that is one reason that climate change is leading to extreme weather events like heat waves, like drought and dry conditions, and which eventually leading to wildfires and loss of livelihood and habitats. Urban expansions. What happened? Some certain regions, especially the coniferous forest regions, are naturally prone to wildfires because of certain chemicals emanating from the leaves. That is generally known as chilling effects. And because of these chemicals, they are having more propensity for fires. And when what is happening due to this, that certain regions of this country or the world are naturally prone to fires, and due to this urban expansion, that women are entering into that fire prone areas, which in turn make them susceptible to such type of disaster. Now we will try to understand the consequences of wildfires. So first important is the loss of biodiversity. I am going to take one example of Australian bushfire. Around 18 million hectare land was engulfed by wildfire, leading to around 3 billion animal species are in fact affected by this wildfire. So it is leading to not only the loss of vegetations but also the flora, also the faunas of that regions, right? Soil degradation. What happens when there is a wildfire? There will be no as such vegetations over the land surface, and it will not able to hold the soils. And if there is a small pouring of water or rainwater, it will lead to increased soil erosion in that region, right? It also lead to soil degradation, air and water quality deterioration. Yes, obviously the burning of fossil fuels, of the burning of vegetations lead to the emissions of CO2, NO2, SO2, and PM 2.5, PM 10. These are the uh, pollutants which got into the air due to this wildfire, thereby impacting the air. And when they found this place into the water bodies through streams, as we have discussed here, that when there is a rainwater and if certain areas are witnessing wildfires and there will be no vegetation, it is having an accumulation of acids, and that acids will be washed away due to the rainwater and finally find their places into the river ecosystem. And if they enter into the river ecosystem, it will lead to algal bloom, and it will lead to the loss of uh, biodiversity of aquatic ecosystem as well, right? Secondly, the economic losses cost. When we are talking about economic cost, first of all, we have to spend a number of money or huge amount of money in order to curtail the wildfires. For instance, in 2020, USA has spent 2.5 billion in order to curb the wildfires of 2020, right? Only the 1 year costing them around 2.5 billion dollars, right? That is the direct impact of wildfires. Second direct impact is related to agriculture and livestock. What happens that, as you know, a lot of forest region and the adjoining of forest region have agriculture area, and at the same time they also farmers also used to scatter livestock in that region. And due to this forest fire or wildfires, agriculture land get also engulfed because of this, and there is also loss of livestock, and that can be considered as one of the economic losses as compared as due to wildfires. And thirdly, property damage. Obviously, anything which will be coming into the way of wildfires will lead to its destruction. So same goes with the buildings which are coming into the areas of wildfire. Public health effect, as we have seen that the air and water quality get deteriorated, then there will be chances of increased respiratory problems, and they can also hamper the population who have cardiovascular problems, right? Secondly, mental health issue. It is not only common to wildfires, it is available, it is common for all the disaster, right? Any calamity lead to anxiety, frustration, which in turn hampers the mental health of the individual who was uh, actually come into the ambit of this type of disaster. Finally, the social consequences. If there is a forest fire, one have to rehabilitate the population from that region, and that will not only cost the, economically, but they will also going to hamper their social cohesions, their cultural practices. Suppose some farmer or some tribal population are living in the forest regions, and they are practicing their cultural trait like animism, or they are speaking certain languages, they have certain rituals to perform. But but because of disaster, especially the wildfire disaster, they have to be displaced to other areas, and when they are displaced to the other areas, their connect with that natural ecosystem will be compromised, thereby leading to a loss of various cultural practices which are generally dependent on the natural ecosystem. So this is one of the problem, and that is one of the social consequences related to the wildfires or any other disaster. Now we will move to how we will able to reduce the wildfires, or especially the impact of wildfires. First of all, we have to detect which areas is the wildfire prone area, right? For that, we can use satellite or drone technologies, or we can also use certain forecasting method as well, right? If we are able to understand the humidity of the air, then we can understand the conditions, whether it is dry or wet conditions. At that same time, we can also go for understanding the agriculture drought, understanding whether the soil is having enough moisture or not. We can also go for mapping of water holes or water bodies in that ecosystem to understand that if they are having certain natural barriers present in that region or not. So that can be one way in order to understand or in order to forecast the probability of wildfires in the near future. Second is land management practices. It is very important practice, right? Controlled burns. As you know, in the natural ecosystem, a number of leaves get collected. Suppose this is a ecosystem, leaves get collected here, right? So what, as a forest department employee, one have to collect these small leaves which become a generally fuse for wildfire and should be removed in a controlled manner, right? Secondly, is thinning and clearing. Suppose this is a plant, there is a number of canopies, right? Containing bush and other vegetations, and they become generally a fuel for wildfire. For that, we have to generally clean the bushes who are surrounding that, or we have to reduce the size of the trees so that the litter which are generated by that ecosystem get reduced, and which can eventually reduce the intensity as well as the amount of wildfires. Thirdly, community engagement and education. Obviously, the public awareness campaign, especially with the agricultural practice like uh, sustainable agricultural practice, reducing the impact of slash and burn agricultural practice, and at the same time empowering the local community in order to fight the wildfires, because they are the first personnel who get noticing who notice the wildfire, and they are the best situated for countering this type of wildfires. And at the same time, when we are enhancing the community engagement, we have to enhance their capabilities by providing proper training, proper technology, so that they can able to cope with this type of disaster. Regulatory measures, stricter land use regulation. Obviously we can ban campfires as has been done in Himachal Pradesh, and we can also go for building codes that will be based on fire resistant building code, right? So if we follow this type of code, then the loss with respect to wildfire will be reduced. Investment in firefighting resources. Yes, obviously the most important is to empower the fire departments by providing them high-end technologies, by providing them proper personnel, at the same time trying to uh, give them training so that they can able to counter the wildfires in their vicinity. Fire breaks and buffer zone. This is a very important concept. Let us try to understand this concept. What happens? Suppose this is natural ecosystem. What we generally do, we create certain buffer zones by removing the uh, vegetations, or by increasing the water holes, right? So suppose if there is a wildfire in this area, it cannot be transferred to these areas because of this buffer zone, or we have cleared that strip of vegetation. So there is no as such fuel for the wildfire to encroach that area, right? And similarly, we can also go for water holes so that it can act as a barrier, so that we can able to contain the spread of these wildfires. Climate change mitigation. Obviously, as we have seen that 1.2 degrees Celsius temperature rise has already happened, and it leading to increased in the drought and dry conditions in the environment, which in turn is leading to wildfires. For that, what we have to do? We have to reduce the fossil fuel emissions, especially the greenhouse emissions, right? Because these are the primary causes for climate change or increase in temperature. And for that, what we can do, we can go for sustainable practices where we can imbibe various stakeholders, and we can use natural ecosystem as a model to create certain ecosystems so that it can able to resist the disaster. And secondly, obviously, we have to reduce the greenhouse gases, which in turn leading to increase in temperature of the atmosphere. And if we can able to reduce the greenhouse gas emission, then temperature will be down, and at the same time, it will going to reduce the intensity of the wildfires as well as the frequency of the wildfires. Post recovery, yes. Suppose disaster has already happened, but we have to be resilient enough so that in near future, if in future it will going to come, we can able to counter it. For that, we have to reforest the areas which has been engulfed by the wildfires, and at the same time we can come up with various preparedness plans, mitigations plan, so that in near future this type of disaster do not come, and if it will come, the impact should be minimum. So this is all from for wildfires. Now we're going to see the second topic, that is the spike in India's trade deficit a worry, right? So we have taken this article from the Hindu newspaper, and we have taken this because India's trade deficit, it is one of the macroeconomic indicator, right? And UPSC is generally fond of macroeconomic indicators, right? And they can ask this question, and they have asked this question in the preliminary sections, and they can ask this question in the main section as well. For instance, you can see in 2017, among several factors that India's potential growth, saving rate is the most effective one. Do you agree? What are the other factors available for growth potential, right? So here you can see that they are asking the macroeconomic indicators. There you can talk about investment rate and other factors which can enhance the India's GDP growth rate. So first of all, we have to understand the context why we have taken this article, because exports from India has shrunk by 1.5% in July, and they also get depend in August. This has coincided with the recorded import bill. It means that the export of India is decreasing, at the same time the import is increasing. It means that it is widening the trade deficit of our country. So it is considered as the second highest after record of October 2023, where there we have the trade gap around 29.9 billion. This time we have 29.7 billion, right? Now we are going to see, first of all, try to understand what is trade deficit. We are going to see certain things related to current account because India generally faces current account deficit. We have generally current capital account surplus, but we are mostly facing the current account deficit. So let us see what is current account. Here you can see there it has three components, right? Trades in good. Trade in good means export as well as imports of good. Trade in services. Services are generally considered as invisible, so that are trades in import as well as export of services. And transfer payment, for instance, the remittances and all that thing, that is considered as a part of current account deficit. And suppose why why we are saying that this current account India is facing current account deficit, because our import, especially the imports of goods, are more than the exports of good, leading to current account deficit. That receipt from various exports of goods and services is generally low as compared to the payments made for various imports done by country, leading to trade deficit. If we are able to enhance our export as compared to import, then we can able to see the current account surplus, but this is not the case for us. We are facing the current account deficit. Now we're going to see what is the reasons for this type of deficit, especially the trade deficit, right? High import dependency. As you know, around 88% of India's oil requirement are imported, and it put a huge burden uh, on India's import bill, right? Secondly, as you know, gold. India has a cultural affinity with respect to gold, and recently there is a surge of in the gold. We will going to see why there is a surge in the import of golds. This is the second one of the important factors leading to increased trade deficit in our country, because we are importing huge amount of gold. At the same time, we are not exporting enough to counter or to compensate this type of imports. And thirdly, electronics. Though we become a major producer of phones and electronic devices, however, the inputs like chips are still imported, and we generally focusing on assembling the electronic items, right? Rather than manufacturing it, we are trying to assemble it, and for that we have to import a number of input materials from the other countries, especially the East Asian countries, so that we can give the boost to our electronics sector, and that too is adding to our import bill. The most important one is photovoltaic cells, mobile chips, computer processors, and many more things. And secondly, as we have seen that our import is increasing, but we have less propensity to export our items. And whatever items we are exporting is not of a high remuneration. For instance, we generally export our agriculture goods and textile goods into the global market, right? And that having very less remuneration, right? So the earning from the export is not that much sufficient enough to counter the imports, which are increasing due to this oil, gold, and electronics and other sectors as well. Secondly, the global competition. As you know, as we have discussed, take the example of textile only. Countries like Southeast Asia and Bangladesh Southeast Asia and Bangladesh are the major competitor in the global market with respect to textile industry. They are selling their product or they are exporting their product at a much cheaper cost because one more thing related to Bangladesh, because they are considered as a least developed countries, so they have preferential tariff access to various countries, and they exploit this thing, which in turn hampering the competitiveness of India's textile sector. Rising protectionism, as we have seen in the trade war as well between USA as well as China, but this rising protectionism has increased after the COVID-19, and unions like European Union are coming up with various rules like carbon border management tax, and they are also coming with the deforestation law, which in turn curbs the prospect of India's export into the European market. So this type of rising protectionism is hampering the export potential of our country. And thirdly, that is structural challenges in manufacturing. As we have seen that we have a number of structural challenges like low skill level of the workforce, poor infrastructure, small size of the MSMEs which cannot able to scale their productions. So these all are hampering the competitiveness of the India's industry, which in turn reducing its export in the global market. Apart from the structural challenges, we are also facing certain issues which we call as uh, having small MSMEs. These small MSMEs are not having technology intensive, they are not using more technologies, which in turn reduces their productivity. And if their productivity is reduced, it means that they have to put a number of costs to get a proper output. And if the input is increasing, that it means that the cost of the output will also going to increase. And if there is a rise in the price of the output, then it will be demanded less in the economy, which in turn hampers the competitiveness of India's products. Volatile global demand. As you have seen after COVID-19 that a number of economies are trying to regenerate themselves. However, the global demand for various goods and services get reduced. Apart from that, you know that a number of wars are going on, especially in the Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, and various other areas of the world, and in the South Africa as well. And this type of turmoil hampers the economic prospect of that region. And if the economic prospect of these regions will be hampered, it means the global demand for goods and services will be less, which in turn reduce the propensity for India to export their item into the market, which are more favorable to them historically, like African market, like Middle East market, right? And this one is the last one is bilateral and multilateral trade agreement. This is a really challenge for India, right? Because we have signed number of free trade agreement with the ASEAN and various other countries, and for them we have to reduce our tariff, right? And it is generally said that this all the bilateral and multilateral agreement which India signed is not reaping benefits to India, generally helping the other countries to get their product in a get their product access into the domestic market of India, but India's product are not being sold in their market, and all are skewed against India in this case, right? They are getting better tariff benefits, so they have better market access, and they try to export more as compared to import, hampering our overall balance of payment, especially the current account deficit. Now we're going to see why it has widened recently, right? As we have seen that there is a global demand for good has been slowed down, especially in the especially in the USA, Middle East, and Russia, Ukraine, or Eastern European part. And there is also an uncertainty related to the upcoming US election, which is going to be, I think, in it will be happening in November. and this lead to a lot of reduction in the investment, right? Because there are people, the investors are trying to cause the outcome of this election. On the basis of that, they will going to start investing. Till then they are uh, following a hawkish rule. Secondly, moreover, it is the interplay of downward pressure expected to keep oil prices. One more thing is that if the economic of the global, if the global demand for goods are reduced, and you should be aware about the fact that India has a huge chain of refinery industries. So though we import a number of oil items from the world, we generally refine it and try to export it in the global world. It is one of way of our earning for us, right? And because there is a low demand in the global market, then the export of this refined oil are also get compromised, and at the same time the prices of this refined goods will also be less. It means that the earning from the export will be a little lesser as compared to earlier. Decline in exports, especially as we have discussed the petroleum, there is also a decline in gems and jewelry sector. So this is a little factual for you. So bear with me. Apart from that, that pharmaceutical industries, we have seen a surge in the pharmaceutical industry, especially the export of the medicines during the COVID-19 pandemic. And almost 60% of the world medicine manufacturing unit are set up in our country. We have that potential to create 60% of the global medicine in our territory. But as you have known that this COVID-19 has vanished right now, so the demand for certain drugs also get reduced, which means that our earnings from these pharmaceutical exports get reduced. Apart from that, some scholars are saying that Chinese economies are slowing down. It means the exports of building materials, especially the cement, sands, steel, get also reduced. Right, right. So these are the few challenges associated with India's current account deficit. Increase in imports, as we have seen that, as we have, I have told you already that the gold is having in India having a cultural affinity. At the same time, in the recent budget, the tariff, especially the import duty, has been reduced from 15% to 6%, and that lead to surge in the demand of goods, leading to doubling of imports in the August to all-time high around 10.1 billion. It means that gold is putting a lot of strain on our balance of payment, right? So now we're going to see. Still, we can say that so it is having no as such significant risk. For instance, because India is having high economic growth, it can sustain such type of fluctuations in the current account deficit. Apart from that, we have an import cover of around, import cover means that we can able to import without any earning, right? Up to 11.6 months means almost 12 months of import cover we have due to our huge forest reserve. It is of around 675 billion. And finally, that is surge in service exports. As you know, we are the dominant player in the exports of the service sector, and it is increasing by 10% each month from between April and August, which in turn provide a proper cushion for us to maintain this type of deficit or to counter this type of current account deficit. Now we will move to our preliminary discussion. This discussion is very important because one of the reason in Kerala is engulfed with this Nipah virus, and you have been listening this virus since a long time because it, they resurge in this month generally. So Nipah virus are single strand virus, single strand RNA virus. It is not a DNA virus, it is a RNA virus, means they have a single strand where various chemicals like ATCG are there, right? Now, other facts related to Nipah virus is that the major carrier is known to be fruit bat, and whenever they eat fruits, and fruits are eaten by the people, then it can lead to the transmission. And even they have urinated on certain trees, for instance, like palm, and you have drink that or in that date palm shape, or you have eaten that date palm shape, will also lead to the Nipah virus transmission. Apart from that, people to people contact can also lead to people to people means impacted people with respect to these people will get this transmission will also occur from this route as well, people to people. And this is generally a zoonotic disease. Zoonotic disease means it transfer from animals to humans. So in this case it is fruit bat, and if suppose this fruit bat has eaten certain uh, food items, and that food item was eaten back by pig, and that people start eating that pig, then it also led to the transmission of that disease. Now we're going to see what is the Nipah Protocol. So, as you have seen in the COVID-19 as well, first of all, what we have to do is to create a containment zone. So, whenever you are thinking that this is the outbreak region, so we have to create a containment zone so that the movement of people can be restricted. Secondly, suppose if there is one is a one people is infected from this virus, and we have known that this is the victim of this virus, so we have to do the contact tracing so that all the people who come into the vicinity of that person should be tracked so that they cannot having certain symptoms, especially with respect to this Nipah problems, Nipah virus, as we have done in the COVID-19 as well. Public health measures we can go for quarantine, we can go for social distancing and public awareness campaign so that we can able to reduce the virus. Similarly, personal protective measures or equipment should be given to the healthcare workers so that whenever they are treating the patient, they should not get engulfed with this virus. Laboratory testings to in order to uh, uh, map their genomes, at the same time to understand their spread rate, at the same time to understand their death rate. One of the important factor I missed in this is that around 40 to 75% have in the case of Nipah are having so much of mortality rate, around 40 to 75% of mortality rate. It means that if certain viruses are more deadly, it means their geographical spread will be limited, because people who are impacted by this virus will die and they cannot able to carry this virus to the other regions. So, in one way, it is a good thing, but seeing the rate of mortality or the intensity of this virus, then it means that the person who is infected by this virus is having very high chances of death. Treatment and supportive care, obviously, as we have done in the COVID-19 infected individual, including supportive treatment to manage their symptoms. Now we're going to solve the MCQ. So you have to solve this MCQ and comment in the comment box, which has been asked in the UPSC in 2017. Now we will try to solve this practice question. Consider the following statement with reference to Nipah virus. Primates are believed to be natural reservoirs of this virus, but we have seen that fruit bat is the having the natural reservoir of this virus. Symptoms of Nipah virus infection are similar to influenza. Yes, it is similar to influenza, coughing and all that thing used to happen during this virus. The infection can be prevented by prior administration of vaccines. So let me tell you one thing, that there is no as such vaccine developed for the Nipah virus. So this statement is also incorrect, and first statement is also incorrect. It means the option that B statement is two statement is correct, only one is the correct answer. Now we'll move to our next topic, that is presidential post passes off peacefully in Sri Lanka. So it becomes very important recently because the stable Sri Lanka will have a less security threat for our country. So this polling, presidential poll, is a good symbol for our country as well, because they have occurred very peacefully, and at the same time their democratic setup has been re-established. So let us see the context. Sri Lanka is conducting its first election after the people's uprising in the Sri Lanka, which unseated Gotabaya Rajapaksa, right? So there was a civil disobedience movement kind of things going on in Sri Lanka, leading to lot of loss of livelihood and people. So this type of things has engulfed the regions, and at the same time, it led to the migration of lot of Tamilians, especially the Sri Lankan Tamils, to the our territory, which in turn leading to a threat for our national security. So let us try to understand the presidential form of uh, uh, what type of government present in the Sri Lanka. So it is generally considered as a semi-presidential form of government, right? It means that they have both president and prime minister. However, the power of the president will be more as compared to the prime minister. So they are direct, like India, they are head of the state. But unlike India, they are also the head of the government. But in India, the head of the government is prime minister and head of the state is president. But in case of Sri Lanka, the head of the head of the government as well as head of the state is both president, right? And they are elected for 5 6 years as compared to India, where we elect our president for 5 years. And in India, we do indirect election to the to the office of president. But in Sri Lanka, it is directly elected by the people. So if somebody is directly elected by the peoples, it means that they are having more power over the public services, and at the same time, they have more influence over the polity of that region, right? What's more, yes. What happens in the last when Rajapaksa was president, he do away with the maximum term for the presidential elections. So he done away the 2 terms norm, which was prevalent on that time. But Rajapaksa has removed that terms, and they try to continue their presidential form, the seat of presidency for more than 2 terms. But it was reinstated by the parliament of the uh, Sri Lanka, and the president can have a maximum of 2 terms only. Now we're going to see certain other powers associated with the president. As we have discussed, it is head of the state, head of the government, and commander in chief of the armed forces. So this power, head of the state and commander in chief of the armed forces, is similar to India, but this head of government is dedicated to PM in India, but not in Sri Lanka. President is directly elected, as we have seen, for 6 year terms. President has a wide-ranging executive power, including the appointment of ministers, including the prime minister, which is generally common in India as well. And secondly, we're going to talk about prime minister and cabinet. The president appoints the prime minister, who is typically the leader of majority. But one thing you have to notice here is that the cabinet is responsible to the parliament, but the cabinet is headed by or led by president. As we have seen that president is the head of the government, it means that the cabinet is also headed by the president in Sri Lanka, right? Thus creating a hybrid system, that is presidential and parliamentary system. Legislature, so they also have a legislature, and but they don't have bicameral legislature. It means that they don't have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. They have only one house, and that consists of 225 members, and they are for 5 year of terms, and they perform the legislative functions, and the executive functions are performed by the president. Now we're going to solve the MCQ. You have to solve this PYQs and comment in the comment box. And now we're going to solve this MCQ. With reference to Sri Lanka political system, which of the following is correct? The president of Sri Lanka is elected indirectly. As we have seen, it is elected directly. So this statement is incorrect. Secondly, the prime minister of Sri Lanka holds more executive power than president. It is also incorrect, as we have seen that the president is both the head of the government as well as head of the state. It means that the president holding more power as compared to prime minister. Thirdly, the Sri Lanka system is pure parliamentary, as we have seen that it is semi-presidential form of government. So this statement is also incorrect. The president of Sri Lanka can serve as a maximum of 2 terms. Yes, it was reinstated by the recent constitutional amendment. So this statement is correct. Option D is the correct answer. Now we'll move to our last topic, that is emu. You can see that this is the uh, emu, and it is the second largest in terms of height after ostrich, right? So it is very important animal, and they can live in various vegetations, but they generally prefer open areas having water resources, right? Let us see a brief about it. It's generally found in the Australian region, right? Including the savannas, grassland, forest, and scrubland. You can see that they can be found in various ecosystem, but they are mostly preferable in the open areas with access to water sources and having less dense vegetation, right? Now we're going to see a certain facts related to their social behavior. So they are social animals, so they live in groups, and at the same time, when they living in group during the specific period like foraging or breeding period, because during that time they need helps of their colleagues. Secondly, the foraging. So they are mostly omnivorous and feeds on seed, fruits, and flowers and insect, and they have a keen to find in a they have keen ability to find food in a varied landscape. It means that their the gauging ability is very strong. Similarly, breeding. So one is the beautiful thing regarding the breeding of emu is that the male emu takes the responsibility of incubating the eggs and caring for the chicks after they hatch. It means that the male member has more role after laying off eggs by the female member of the emo community. Communication, they use various vocalization like uh, drumming sounds using their vocal sets, which can be heard over long distance. So these are the mode for communication. Now we're going to solve the MCQ. So you have to solve this and comment in the comment box. Now we're going to solve this practice question. Which of the following statement about the emu is true? Emus are primarily found in the dense rainforest and heavily urbanized area. This statement is wrong. As we have seen, it is generally found in open areas, though they can survive in various rainforests, but they are generally preferable found in the open areas having access to water and having less vegetation. Secondly, the emu male, the male emu is responsible for incubating the eggs and caring for the chicks after they hatch. Yeah, this statement is correct. Emus primarily feed on small mammals and they are omnivorous and generally feed on insects, fruits, and other kind of seeds. Emus are native to they are not native to North America. They are generally found in Australia. So this statement is also incorrect. This statement is also incorrect. So this is the correct option. Option B is the correct answer. So that is all from my side. Have a good day. If you need anything, comment in the comment box.